Subluxation intro, take one.
Year 1895. Here comes a car. Lincoln, who later was given the Firks. Babe Ruth was born, and so born.
Subluxation intro, take five.
Now, 1895 was a landmark year in many ways. X-rays were discovered by Wilhelm Röntgen, who later was awarded the first Nobel Prize in Physics. Babe Ruth was born. The first automobile patent in the U.S. was awarded. And 1895 marked the birth of chiropractic. That's right. D.D. Palmer delivered the first chiropractic adjustment in that year. He may or may not have partially or fully restored the hearing of one Harvey Lillard. A lot of surrounding mystery around that and folklore and so forth, but we chiropractors tend to use that as the marking point for the beginning of our profession. Palmer was an interesting guy. He believed in the body's innate capacity to heal itself. He delved into some off the beaten track kinds of therapies like magnetic healing and other forms. But his contention was that the body has an incredible innate capacity to heal itself. He felt that delivery of nervous system impulses from the brain down the spinal cord, out the nerve roots to the nerves, eventually to what are known as end organs such as muscles, organs, glands, etc., was the key to maintenance of good health. By the same token, he believed that interference with such nerve flow to these particular tissues would cause dysfunctional tissues, eventually leading to disease. So there are some things that D.D. Palmer and later his son B.J. Palmer got right back in the day, and as you might expect, viewed through the lens of modern science, a few things wrong as well. So why don't we come along and I want to talk about some of these things. This is basically a follow-up to my previous video in which I promised a talk on the chiropractic subluxation and chiropractic adjustment. Follow me. 24 vertebrae. Oh, here's one. Good. Okay, I took a little walk down the field and look what I found, a model of a human spine. How lucky we are. You know, in point of fact, the history of bone setting dates back many centuries through many cultures. In fact, the first known reference is at about 1500 BC in an Egyptian medical text on papyrus. It's known as the Edwin Smith Papyrus, and that's something that might be interesting to Google. But at any rate, back to Palmer and their theories. I want to do a really quick overview of spinal anatomy. Don't worry, we're not going back to school. This is very quick and down and dirty. This, as we know, is a model of the human spine. 24 movable bones called vertebrae, separated by shock-absorbing spacers known as discs, or intervertebral discs. Atop this column of vertebrae sits the brain. It's encased in 22 bones we know of as the skull. Now, an extension of the brain, the spinal cord, runs down a canal inside this column here, and behind every spacer disc exits a spinal nerve. It was the contention of the Palmers and the teachings of the day that dysfunctional mechanics of spinal segments could literally pinch off spinal nerve roots as they exited the canal, if you can see there. And potentially that looks pretty possible, does it not? The theory then went that pinching off of that spinal nerve, much like the kinking of a garden hose, would disrupt normal flow of nerve impulses to whatever that nerve went to, be it a muscle, a gland, an organ, or something like that. It stands to reason that that would cause lack of proper function of the muscle or whatever, and over a long enough time might result in disease of that tissue. Palmer called such a misalignment or malmotion of a segment, the subluxation. For 120 years now, the subluxation has been the holy grail of chiropractic. Palmer reasoned that if the dysfunctional mechanics at that area could be corrected, we could relieve pressure off these spinal nerves, thereby restoring proper input to the distant cells and relieving the system of that stress would cause it to heal. All well and good. Palmer termed that corrective force the adjustment. So the two key terms in chiropractic remain today: chiropractic subluxation, chiropractic adjustment. So to review, Palmer's theory was that dysfunctional spinal position would pinch off a spinal nerve, causing dysfunction down the line, and to correct that via the adjustment would restore proper health. The problem with that is today's research does not support that theory. The Palmers were adamant about the idea that spinal segmental dysfunction would cause disruption of flow outward from the spinal cord and cause health problems. The reality of it is, and we've known this for probably 30 years or so, is that's not true. The truth of the matter is spinal segmental dysfunction causes problem with flow to the brain. That's huge. So the adjustment is superbly powerful in maintenance and restorative health activities, but the theory of the action was a bit wrong. Okay, quickly back to the spine for another couple seconds. Keep in mind the following. There's enormous communication between the brain and everything outside the spinal cord or outside the central nervous system. There are conversations the brain is holding with every cell, every muscle, every organ, every blood vessel in the body. In fact, there's about 10 times as much information going to the brain than from the brain. What we realize today is that the old bone out of place pinching off spinal nerve function is antiquated, outdated, and purely wrong. It pains me to say that there's a small segment still of the chiropractic community that holds that theory to heart. I cringe a little bit when I hear bone out of place and pinching off spinal nerves. So here's the crux. For the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about two specialized nerve receptors: nociceptors and mechanical receptors. Those are two of millions of sensory apparatus out in the body that the brain is taking information from at all times. But this is the key in chiropractic. When there's dysfunction of a spinal segment anywhere, two things happen. Mechanical receptors, which are situated in all joints, are decreased in output. And nociceptors, which are receptors in all joints and in fact in all tissues in the body, are increased in output. What's the problem with that? Well, increased nociceptor input to the brain causes any number of troubles because it communicates with all parts and all lobes of the brain. The limbic system, the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system, what does that control? Blood pressure, pulse rate, dilation of eyeballs, etc. All of the automatic actions of the body that are happening 24/7 that we never think about. Increased nociceptor input to the brain causes disruption and imbalance in all of those systems. Decreased mechanical receptor information to the brain causes troubles like balance, causes troubles in the brain's ability to understand positional awareness of all of our joints. In fact, Guyton's textbook of medical physiology stated that by far the greatest input to the brain regarding equilibrium comes from upper cervical or upper neck mechanical receptors. So, when there's dysfunction from an injury, overuse, something like that, of joint mechanics at one joint or several, there is always central nervous system imbalance. Anywhere from the lumbar spine, number 5, to the top cervical number 1. Okay, so why don't we take a load off for a second? So folks, in summary, I am not going to go into some of the stuff we went into in last visit. Why chiropractic is good. Does chiropractic really work? Yes, chiropractic really works. If it didn't, 90% of all the world's elite and professional athletes wouldn't be seeing chiropractors on a regular basis. All 32 NFL football teams wouldn't have chiropractors on their staffs, which they do. If all I knew was the effect that chiropractic had on me in 1980, changed my life. So yes, it works. I just wanted to explain a little bit why it works and what the difference is from the thinking of 120 years ago. The key takeaway in the end is there's huge communication between the brain and every cell in the body. We need proper balance of outflow information and feedback information to the brain. The brain is a reactive organ and it needs proper sensory input from all the receptors it can get so that it can make proper decisions. So listen, until next time, whatever that video might be, I wish you vibrant health. Thanks so much. Dr. J.